I wanted to take a moment just to talk about a change that is happening at our church. Over the past 3 years, we've been having conversations with connection groups, deacons, administrative teams about changing our name. This has been a unique undertaking. As you can imagine, this is an emotional issue. I've been here for 16 years. My family's been here for 16 years. In fact, when I came, I didn't have a family, and you guys have loved my 2 girls and my wife so well. And this is my home. And so this is very much an emotional issue, I believe, for us as well. We've been looking at this idea of a name change for a while. We've been looking at statistics and reading articles. We've sought counsel from the Southern Baptist Convention. We have prayed and prayed over this. We have asked the Lord for clarity and thoughtfulness on this issue. And as we've looked at Scripture as well, we see the prevalence of name change, where we have seen over 50 different name changes in Scripture. So we are excited to tell you that we are changing our name to the Lake Church. So let me just take a moment to explain why this is important to us. I believe the Lord has been very clear that we needed to make this name change. About 42 years ago, an incredible group of people made the move from East Fort Worth, that was once Tarrant Road Baptist Church, over to this area of town, and they renamed the church Lake Arlington Baptist Church. From a logical standpoint, it makes a lot of sense to rename a church if the geographical distinction or location changes. And so they needed to do that. But in a similar way, we're needing to do the same thing. And although we're not changing locations, our locations are expanding. Our footprint is growing. And I know that this wonderful church has already and is continuing to plant churches, to add local ministries, and potentially start non-English speaking congregations here. So we have to address the current geographical distinction that the word Lake Arlington, or words Lake Arlington, presents. Because 1, they're not necessary, and 2, they can and they will be confusing. We also need to address the denominational name. I know that some have asked if I'm embarrassed by our Southern Baptist roots, and the answer is absolutely not. In fact, I've been Southern Baptist for as long as I've been a follower of Jesus, and we are only increasing our affiliations with them. But we do need to address it just from the standpoint of denominations create division among people today. Listen, this church has always been a loving, giving congregation toward people. And I want people who aren't here yet to not be intimidated about being here so that they can experience what you've experienced, what I've experienced. And I don't want a denominational name to be a hang-up for them. It could be any denomination. I'd hate for somebody to see a denominational name and choose not to come because they think that you have to be a certain denomination in order to come, or that they may have preconceived notions about what they have to do or how they have to clean up, or maybe they even had a bad experience somewhere or even heard of a bad experience. This may sound ridiculous to somebody who has been Southern Baptist all their life. I've even had to wrestle with this at points. But I also have to consider some of my feelings toward other groups that maybe I don't know much about, or maybe I had a bad experience there. And I want to be careful not to paint them with one brush. See, when Jesus talks about the community of people gathering to worship, He calls them the church. And that's a distinctive that we'll always have. See, denominations, they didn't even exist until after the Reformation in the 1500s. And it was a result of splintering groups that were just dividing because they couldn't get along. Now, we know that there's a lot of value in cooperation and affiliations and networks, and we want to keep that. We also know, though, that the Bible, when it talks about a stumbling block, it says that there's only to be one stumbling block, and that's to be Jesus. So we should rightly remove any stumbling block that's within our control so that people can hear biblically sound gospel teaching and experience Spirit-driven community. Listen, this change doesn't mean that there's an identity change with us. We will remain Southern Baptists in our distinctives and doctrinal integrity. We'll share our key doctrines of what it means to be Southern Baptists in our new member class and on our website. Our bylaws aren't changing. In fact, the IRS is still going to know us as Lake Arlington Baptist Church. But because we're not making any changes to our theology, doctrine, affiliations, we can be proud that we're going to be called the Lake Church. So like I said earlier in the video, I've been here for a large portion of my life. And I want you to know my experience with you. You love well. You're hospitable. You walk with people who are in pain. You love the nations. You express the gospel in the way that Jesus expresses the gospel. And I want people to experience that. Bottom line, I don't want there to be a barrier that would prevent anybody from coming and at least experiencing who we are. Because I believe we have a great thing going at the Lake Church.